Picture this. It's milking season. You just got home, your fridge is full of milk, maybe even too full, and you're dog tired. You're not ready to make cheese yet. Or maybe you want to tackle this behemoth of a cheese wheel, but really need to stock up on milk first. Or possibly you want to just save some extra milk for the dry months. What do? Well, shepherds, that's exactly what we're talking about today. Hello shepherds, welcome back. And if you're new here, hello. This is where we talk all things sheepy. My name is Megan, and today we're talking about something that I think is going to be really helpful for a lot of you, and that's how to freeze your sheep's milk properly. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through the entire process step by step. We're talking about what containers to use, how long you can store it, how to thaw it out properly, and all those small details that really make a big difference. So let's get into this. First off, this works really well with sheep, cow, or goat milk, with some differences that I'll get into later on. Irregardless of milk source though, you're not alone in wanting to get the most out of your hard work or even your groceries. Lucky for us, there's an easy solution: freezing our milk. But before we dive into freezing our milk, it helps to think about why we're using our milk. Is it for cheese, soap, cooking, or drinking? These can all impact what kind of containers we're going to end up using. In general though, we want to use a leak-proof, freezer-safe plastic container. As our milk freezes, it'll expand a little, so when using glass, cardboard, brittle plastics, or the container your milk maybe came in, it can crack, break, and then spill all this half-frozen milk throughout your freezer as it slowly expands throughout the container. And on that note, the bigger the container, the slower it freezes, and the slower it thaws. It helps to make sure that your container has some headspace equal to about your fingertip to first knuckle. So that's like 1 to 2 inches or 2 to 5 centimeters of headspace. Ice cube trays are really perfect for small batch soap making. The same goes for preserving cultures if you want to use it to inoculate your milks later on. If you're using a glass or not sure if your plastic is freezer safe, it's important to use containers that have straight sides, such as these here. If you're using freezer bags, it helps to double bag them since they can really split at the seam line. And don't forget to label the contents and date on your container. I only have a few freezer safe containers, so I like to reuse them and store the larger blocks of iced milks in a separate bag. And then when I want to take my block out, I like to run some warm to hot water on the outside and let our milk block just slide on out, and then store it in our chest freezer. Just be careful if you live in an electric, insecure area, warm environment, or an area prone to black or brownouts. Storing milk blocks like this can be really risky, in some areas more so than others, especially if you live in a warmer climate. So that was just a little note on that there. So let's talk prepping our milk for storage. As many of you know, store-bought milk is more often than not homogenized, but this still comes up often enough though, so I'm going to go ahead and cover it here. But when using farm fresh milk, this can occur in a naturally homogenized milk as well, such as goat's milk or sheep milk. What happens is that the cream will slowly rise up to the top of the container as it's freezing. And when you thaw it out, it separates out first, which can be really shocking to people, especially if they're not prepared for how different milk types behave upon the freezing and thawing cycle. With sheep, I've noticed the cream can also leave kind of sticky, thick coat on the container. So I like to separate my cream from my milk and generally freeze them separately. This also helps in various recipes. If you just want cream, you have a block of cream ready. Also, when freezing your milk types, often milk has a yellow cast or hue. The same goes if you're freezing colostrum, it's quite yellow. And cream tends to be on the more white end of the spectrum. These are all really normal colors to expect. So don't be surprised if you freeze your milk and find it a bit yellow. That's okay. The freeze and thaw cycle. How long can you freeze milk without side effects? Depending on milk type, so cow, goat, sheep, etc., the purpose or personal preference. Most milk types freeze well for up to 2 months without any noticeable differences. But here's where sheep milk really excels. Sheep milk keeps its character easily for 6 months. And what this means is that the freezing time and temperature have no effect on the milk quality, even when making cheese. You can use sheep's milk just like how you do fresh milk. And this is a great way to mix different seasons in your cheeses if you want. And after 6 months though, it will behave like other milks and start to separate out between the solids and the liquids. For cheese making, the curds tend to act softer and they need a bit more of a delicate touch when handling. I like to add some calcium chloride in and treat it just like how one would do for store-bought milk. So depending on your source of milk, your animal, And how long it takes before you notice a difference in your milk from between the freezing and thaw cycle does vary some. You may have to shake your milk to get back to that previous milky luster, but it's still safe to drink and use. The fattier milks can be a bit more dramatic, and with the cream line on top of the normal separation that occurs with that longer term storage, if that bothers you, it really helps to separate that cream out as well. And then pull that milk out of the freezer prior to the 6-month mark if you're using sheep's milk, and the 2-month mark for the other types of milks. But on that note, it has been a while since I've used only goat's milk or only cow's milk, so comment below what you've experienced with separation as well. How to thaw your milk. If you've worked in the food industry or have family members who work in the industry, you know what I'm going to say next. The safest place to thaw your milk out is in the fridge. Usually for me, a small quart jar of milk will partially thaw out overnight. For a speedier thaw, it helps to immerse your container in some warm water and changing that water often as the water cools down, and then refreshing it with some more hot water. For cheese making, I usually add the partially melted ice block into my pot with the liquid and then heat it up on low, stirring it often. It can be tricky and you may accidentally scald your milk, so just so you know, if you're heating it up on the stove to thaw it out, it's really important to be careful and to take it slowly and go and work on a low heat, stirring often. If it's a frozen culture for cheese making, I just like to add it to the milk and kind of just factor in that extra time for incubation. Thawed out milk is best used up within the 1 month or less. You've changed. When milk changes after freezing. Let's talk about how milk changes after freezing. One of the things that often surprises folks when freezing milk is how there may be a separation that occurs between the solids and the liquid parts of the milk. Okay, so folks tend to love that homogenized look. Even cream line milk brands tend to struggle in the market. So to fix this problem at home, you pull it out of the freezer sooner, or when you pull your milk out of the freezer, once it's thawing and you notice it's starting to separate, it may help to shake it or pop it in a blender and give it a whirl to blend everything back together. It's perfectly fine for cooking and baking. For cheese making, as I mentioned earlier, you may notice the texture of the curds are softer. You may notice a lower cheese yield as well, or texture differences depending on how far along in the months we've gone from the frozen block. Skimming your milk prior to freezing really also helps prevent this dramatic separation between the milk and the fats and the solids. If you're drinking this milk straight, you might notice that there's a slight difference in texture or mouthfeel. The milk can get a little bit grainy to it, and that's not too fun sometimes. This is due to that same separation of fats and liquids. It can be really unpleasant to drink sometimes. So the blender step really can help break that fat particles up back into the smaller bit. But even if you may not want to drink it, it can still be great for cooking or baking recipes. All right, friends, so that's pretty much everything you need to know about freezing sheep's milk. And truly, it's not that complicated once you get to know the basics. Just remember, give your containers some headspace, label your containers, and be patient when you're thawing it out. Your future self's going to thank you when you've got that milk ready to go for your cheese making or whatever you need it for. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps the channel out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, all that good stuff. If you're celebrating the holidays, I hope you have a very wonderful and peaceful, relaxing holiday. And if you have any questions or if you've tried freezing sheep's milk yourself and you got some tips to share, definitely leave some comments down below. I love hearing from you guys, and I try to respond to as many comments as I can. And if you've made it this far, an extra special thank you. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, and if you're curious about more sheep milk recipes, I hope you check out my other videos, and until next time, stay soft, stay fluffy, and most importantly, stay true to you. Ta-tas!